Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the show today. We're all back in there, we're all up and running. So, time to get started, time to get on with it. I hope you've all voted, done all the right things. So, and I hope your vote comes to fruition for you. Anyway, enough of the vote stuff. So what I want to do today is we're going to continue with our box. One of the things that I'm continually asked is we supply, or we have available box making timbers for the beginners and the starters and the people who have got different timbers or different projects in mind and want some simple timbers. So we have a range of timbers, and this is what they look like. They're generally 1 metre lengths of timber, 10 millimetres thick, dressed all around. This is a piece of New Guinea rosewood, and I'll generally write the end of the name on the end of it so that you can discern what they are. Over a period of time of your joining of timbers, you'll find that you'll start to learn a little about some of the timbers. At this point in time, most people who are beginning think mostly about colour, and when they see me doing a job, I generally use combinations of colours. So, and that's evident when you look at my jobs. You can see that I've got different colours on different things for various reasons. Now, you have your own reasons for doing those sorts of things. So we carry a range of timbers that complement each other most of the time. So some of the ones, and we've just got a little supply in. One of the things that, if you'll notice with this box here, I've got a red timber and a white timber. One of the things, the hard thing to do is to find a reasonable white timber. Now, I use silver ash quite a lot. It's extremely difficult to find. So I tend not to sell the silver ash. I use it in the projects. It gives you a bit of an idea of what we do. What we've come up with though, and we've managed to be able to source, is a new timber called jacaranda. So we've got quite a few of those. Another white timber that we have, and this one's only just come up, and this one here is gelaton, a gelaton, and again it's a nice clean timber, and our usual, which is our silky oak. Oh, okay. Coachwood. This one's got a bit of tape on it. Coachwood, and you can see the various range of colours there, and then we get into some of the redder colours. And the redder ones, the one that I use quite a lot is cedar. I'll just go to our other camera so that Pam can show you some of these in close up. So the cedar and the rose and tends to go with most of those timbers. You can see they all tend to sort of fit together with all of the timbers. Probably not so much with the New Guinea rosewood, but then you'll notice that majority of them, the grain on them is relatively plain. And then when you get into some of the other timbers that we have, this one here is camphor laurel. You can see camphor laurel is actually quite a nice timber to use. It's stable, it does a nice job, and you can see the grain on that is quite stark, or quite significant. And if you like that sort of thing, then you can match that with all of your other different timbers as well. Once you're comfortable with your gear, you'll also see we have a couple of hardwoods, like really hardwoods. These Sydney blue gum is a uke. These are ones that we've just got in. And this one here is, and we haven't had much of this at all. This one here, grey gum, you can see it's a uke as well, and you can see it's got some greys and some colours in it. And again, these colours will match up with a lot of the other lighter white timbers. But we do have some of the white timbers available. So if you're ready and you want some, for those of you who are searching for timbers, we have a small supply of them. Our supplier has come good, and we've ended up with a reasonable amount anyway. So if you wish to purchase some of those, one of the other things that's happened is that I'll just go back to my other camera here. One of the other things that's happened is the freight companies have started sort of putting excesses on anything over a metre long, which means these are all a metre long. We can always cut them down to various sizes, but you need to tell us what sizes you actually want under a metre, so that when we do wrap them up and send them through the post or send them via courier, that it's not going to cost you an arm and a leg to actually get them shipped somewhere. So have a little think about how long you need them if you're going to order from us. So that's the timber thing. So I just had to answer some questions. Some people were asking about the white timbers, the light timbers, the red timbers and so on. So we have got them available. So on with today's show, back to where we were off last week. So last week, oh not last week, week before, we cut the trenches in the bottoms of our boxes. All right, so you can see we had these trenches in the bottom of the boxes. I call them boxes, they're actually the drawers, but we cut those last week. They're quite nice, and you can see they're nice and clean, and we did all of those quite easily. And they are 5mm deep, 4mm trench. We used our rebate cutter to do those. So what we're going to do this week is I'm going to cut the floors for them, but if you remember in the beginning, what we did is I had two tables set up here, and those two tables I had the dovetail bit and the straight bit in two separate sets, and I did all of the frames together. So we ended up with all of these lovely frames. So we ended up with all of our frames. Quite simply done, quite easily done, and done very, very quickly. So what I want to do today is show you how we do all the floors for them. As you can see, we've got a bulk mount, and you'll also notice that, during the shows, you would have seen that I've got 5 of these boxes on the go at once. So cutting them all was quite a simple task, set up the way it was. So what we do is, before we disassemble, I need to measure the depth of the trench. So if I measure into the bottom of the trench, or sorry, the size of the box I should say, if I measure into the bottom of the box, you'll see that this is 150 from the bottom of the trench on this side of here to the inside edge is 150mm. Now I want to be able to have a little bit of movement in there so that expansion and contraction will happen. So instead of going 5mm, which I know that's the depth of the trench, because you can see that over here when you look at the measurement just on there, you can see it's exactly 5mm deep. I don't want to go 5mm deep here, other that would give me a perfect joint, okay, or a perfect fit, which gives no room for movement. So if I go 4mm and allow a little bit of movement, I'll get 154mm. Turn it around to do the other side. So it's exactly the same as well. So on the side of the box here, I wrote the measurements that I want. I got 153 on one side, 154 on the other. So I need a square of material. I've got all the bases here, there's 5 of them. So all they are a 4mm piece of cedar, and they're going to fit in like so. And as you can see, they're a bit too big, so we'll cut them all at the same time. So it's going to fit this way. So my length across here, 153. So all I need to do is put that mark there. So over to the saw. So I'm just going to go over to my drop saw here. Set my measurement. Now I'm using, just about to cut the whole lot at the same time. I'm using my make sure they're perfect. Put my stop on. And I can cut them all at the same time. Now, this only works if everything is square. So make sure everything's square. So ears on, everybody. My other measurement was 154. So one mark again. Just got to move my fence a tiny little bit. Gives me 154. And so I have all of my okay. Right. Now what I need to do is I need to round over my corners. So there's my box, my frame bit. It'll fit on there like so. Okay. Now, I said at the beginning, we talked about my little radius fence that that I built there, and Derek Lark has kindly sent me a copy of one that he's developed on a 3D printer. Now, this one here, this is what they look like, and all you need to do is attach them with a screw to a flat base. Now what I've done with it is I've put a couple of stops in there. That's just to stop it from actually going up against the sander, and these stops are actually the supports for shelves. So I used them in my cabinet, and they were just leftover ones, so they work fine. So they'll just make a nice stop for the material as well. So if you want to get onto Derek, there's a link below, and get onto him. He's got them for sale, and he can make them any size you want. This one here is 11mm radius. That 11mm, you can see that there. That 11mm is the diameter necessary for my rebate cutter. Okay, so they're available. It'll come just as the white piece, and you can build the rest of it. And this is how they work. So over to the table. So when I put these on here, what I generally do is I make sure that the grain, we're cutting into end grain. If you turn it over so that you're actually cutting this way, your first cut is this way along the grain. I prefer to cut into the end grain, so we do that, flip it over, and we'll go through the rest of the procedure. So I'll show you how that works. So having that little setup actually works a treat, and you can see that all the parts just need a little bit of a light sand. Turn it over, light sand again. Now all this timber has been dressed. I've sanded it to a reasonably fine finish, and then just to fit them. So I'm only going to fit one, but I'm actually going to glue the whole box together when I do that. So I'll show you how that works. What I need now is a fence. And this is an important piece to thing as well. When you're disassembling, I could get that like this and I could just reef it apart. Now I can do that because the joints are a perfect fit. They're not too tight, they're not too loose. They're actually quite a nice fit. I don't want to do that because if you pull it apart, what will happen is you will spread the joints and you will damage them. So when you're pulling them apart, support the material and just wriggle it like so. You see it's sitting on the fence nicely, and it's just a matter of wriggle it out like so. I'll do a dry fit to start with. I think it was that way. If it doesn't fit, we can readjust. Actually, it doesn't fit. Reason being is it's a bit too thick. Oh dear. We can't have that. Okay, so just pull that out of there. I had that dressed up nicely too. I tried it in another piece of material that we have. So it's a little bit tight. So what we can do, this is my little sander. You can just take a little bit off the edges. Now, I could use the plane. All I've done is I've got my little sanding pad and I've tilted it a tiny little bit, just enough to give it a bit of relief. Remember, your trench is only 5mm deep, so you don't really have to take a lot out of it. Let's try that. See what happens there. Got it in the wrong way, I think. Might just take a little bit more off. Should put it on the right way, I suppose. Okay, so That's going to fit in there nicely. So what I'm looking for is just making sure I haven't got any gaps in any of the joints, and that's going to fit quite nicely. Okay, so I might take a little bit more off one side, but the rest of it is pretty good. So again, when you disassemble, just wriggle it. Remember, it's only very fine adjustments you're doing now. Just need to take a little bit more off this edge here. And we're looking pretty good now. Now before I finish pulling it apart, just going to put a little cross here, a little cross there. I want those two joints to go together. Put it on the side. And this is how I glue it together. Get rid of that. Get your bits and pieces, everything that you need. Just make sure you have them all ready to go. A little bit of glue. Don't need much. I need a little square. And I need a cramp. Okay, so these are the bits with the cross on it. So my first bit is dovetails. Work from the back. If you work from the back and only go 3/4 of the way into the joint when you put the glue in there, you get less squeeze out in the box or in the drawer. Like I say, you don't need a lot of glue. Your joints are in pretty good condition. You saw how I pulled it apart. It worked quite nicely. So now I had to use a little bit of strength to get it apart, but not that much that was going to damage anything. So now it's just a matter of getting it all glued together. One. This one's going to go there. So a little bit of glue here. That piece there. Now, work out where your end grain is going to be. The drawer is that way, so it's going to go that way. So my end grain is going to be here. So I'm only going to put glue in one section. There's a bit of sawdust in there that actually has to come out, so I need to get a tool for that. This little furry bit. Sometimes those little furry bits actually cause grief, so it's a good idea to get rid of them. Wipe off the excess before we actually assemble. I sand that side. Okay, so we're in there. Now I'll glue up both of these. For those of you who are wondering about the timber packs, I tend not to put the packs. When I put together our packs of timber, I generally put a mixture of timbers in, unless of course you want something different. So if you're keen on the rose mahogany, not the rose mahogany, the New Guinea rosewood, the or any of the other timbers that I've shown you today, you can get a pack of that on its own. Now generally a pack is 7 sticks of timber, and if you go onto our website you can get the order it through the website if you like. Also a link down the bottom. As you can see, I've put the glue in there. Now don't overdo the glue. I tend to make sure that it's a nice, just a small amount, just enough to get everything glued together. You don't want too much squeeze out. I was having a chat with Chris Clark the other day, having a bit of a laugh. He's a very enthusiastic woodworker, and as you're probably aware, he's also the editor of the Woodsmith magazine. And he follows along and gets very engrossed in our shows. He was saying to me that he was so engrossed the other day that he was actually blowing the sawdust off my bench from his computer. I thought that was quite a funny statement. Fair bit of amusement. So I thought today I'm going to rectify a little bit of that so that he hasn't got the problem. I went through the process quite some time ago of building a number of different. I'm just getting a little bit of excess out while I'm talking here. I went through the process. Got a little bit of squeeze out. I went through the process of building proper fences for dust fences, and I can't remember ever using them. So I'm going to put one into practice today. If we get there, we'll see how we go. Okay, so there's my box. Let's get rid of all this. Now this is where you have time. You can sit yourself at the bench and spend the time putting the boxes together. Just got to check it for square. And just generally having a little quiet time. It's spot on, don't have to move anything. So while the glue is wet, you can actually give it a bit of a nudge one way or the other. Okay, but basically that's it. So there's my, that's the bottom drawer of this box. This will be the bottom drawer. This one will go in here. It doesn't fit at the moment, but it will when I'm show you what I'm going to do today. Okay, so that will fit into there. So put that aside to dry, and we'll go on with the next process. Now the next process, just let me get rid of all of this sort of stuff. Let's the drawers, that's the floors for those. Put it back in there. Clamp back up where it belongs, otherwise I'll end up having mess all over the place, and Pammy keeps coming at me, just saying to me, tidy up as you go. And she's right, should tidy up as you go. Okay, we're ready for the next bit. Okay, now the next bit, once your drawers are dry, you need to go through this process. So this is one of the other boxes that I have, and I've dressed all these drawers up to fit. So they all fit in there quite nicely. So I hope you're keeping up with this, folks, because we're getting close towards putting fronts on these. Okay, so as you can see, they all fit. And somebody said to me, well, you've got them in there, how do you get them out? Because you've got a back on it and you can't get into each of the parts. This is how I get them out. Now remember those holes that I drilled in there so that we can screw the face onto it? Just grab yourself a long screw like so and just poke it in the hole just to give it a little turn, and we can pull it out. Okay, so that's how I get them in and out. So that's going to go into there. Now the bottom drawer. I had it here. I'll put it down. Oh, if it was a snake, it would have bitten me. As you can see, it doesn't quite fit. Right. I've dressed the sides of the box, right, plain and sanded. So we've got all those. When you look at this, you can see the joints protrude past each other. Okay, so they stick out a little bit, so we need to dress those down. You can do that with a plane, you can do it with sander, even those little sanding blocks. These little sanding blocks will work on it as well. So it doesn't take a whole lot to get rid of those. So get those sorted so that you've got the box that will just about fit in there. So that fits in there. What we have got is the piece of timber. When I cut it so that it was 1/2 millimetre too wide, so it wouldn't fit in anyway. What that does, that gives me time to dress, or gives me room to dress and get things to fit perfectly. You can see all of these ones fit really nicely. Now all I need to do is fit that one. So this is the process I go through. The first thing I do is grab myself a sanding board. Shift this off the bench. Tidy as you go. Just make sure it's tied down enough, and then I'll now, we as humans are generally right or left-handed. There are a few of us who are ambidextrous, but we're generally right-handed. So that means that we put more weight on our right hand if we're right-handed. If we're left-handed, we put more weight on our left hand. It's just a natural way that we do things, and it's because of the way we grow up, the way we're brought up. So if I sanded my box like this, all my weight's on my right hand, so I'd end up taking too much off the right hand side of the box. So what I want to do is make sure that I've got it even. So I generally count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in my head, of course, and then I'll turn it around and do the other side exactly the same. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that generally gives me a flat surface on the bottom of the box that will give me a flat surface. Take all the edges off, any furry bits, and I've got quite a nice little flat surface. It doesn't make tilt or anything like that, so just a little bit of a sand. So that's only 360. I already did the box with 180 beforehand. So now it's time to do the top. Now I could turn it over and I could just sand it because I'm only going to take a small amount off, but I want a nice clean cut, right? So instead of using the sander, I'm going to use router bit. I'll probably need those again in a second, but anyway. Now the router bit I'm going to use, and you've seen me do this task before. We use a spiral cutter, TSR W12 is the cutter. Find my spanner. I put it away. There you go. Put it away, couldn't find it. Set the height. I'm only going to set the height just above the thickness of the piece of material. Just above. I don't want much sticking out at all. Okay, now, how do I run that along there? Okay, so I have to have a fence. Now, this is where, I'll just turn the bench around so that Pammy can get the camera on it. This is where the dust extractor comes in handy. I made these some time ago, and like I said, they are adjustable. I've got 3 or 4 different sizes, and they're made with a couple of tie downs, just a couple of pieces of timber that are pocket hole joined together, and the cut in them actually matches one of the router bits. So this one here absolutely matches that. The router bit sits in here, and the dust extractor, the dust is obviously drawn up through here. Part of the reason that I haven't used them in the past is that a dust extractor system is a little bit noisy. It's not that noisy, but it does interfere with what's going on. So all I do is that, and then you can see I can slide my fence over, and so the router bit is actually underneath the fence, and all the sawdust can be drawn straight out through there. So, Chris, you don't need to blow it off this time. I've got it all sorted, mate. So we should be good to go. So I want to lock my fence on. Now I only need enough exposed router bit there to take a tiny little bit off there. You know, you saw when I fitted it, it was about 1 millimetre or so. So I've only got a small amount exposed through that. I'm not going to run along this fence. If I do that, as it comes off this side here, I'll tend to sort of go like that and I'll take too much off at all. I want to run along this fence. Okay, so I have to set this fence. So I just better mark my distance. So that's going to fit there. And I need to mark, I don't need to take very much off at all. So all I'm taking off is 1/2 millimetre. That's not much at all. Okay, so need to set my fence. So I'm going to set this fence. A bit there, just make sure I can come out the other side. Takes a little bit of a fiddle. Perfect. Couple of cramps. It's going to come out there nicely. Okay, now what I need to do is I need to keep the base up against this fence here, not that one. All right, this one is just going to be the dust extraction. So I'm going to hook up the dust extraction. I'll get Pammy to turn it on in a second. So let's just go to here. And this is how this works. Just a simple attachment like that. And we're all good to go. So if you can turn that on. Yes, thank you, Pammy. I hope that's not too noisy for you folks. You can hear it in the background. So here we go. Now, what I've done there, just coming close on that, you can see that I have a perfectly clean surface. A little bit furry in a couple of places, but that's okay, we can clean that off. But I've got a very clean surface. Now, when I'm doing the next box, I'll just get one out for you. Because I had so many to do, this was the easiest way to do it. So when I want to do the next box, all I need to do is move this fence over a little bit further. I've still got my dust extractor working nicely, but I can just move it over a little bit closer, bring the fence over, and I can adjust that fence according to how much I need to take off for each of the drawers. As you're aware, all of the drawers are different sizes. So let's see if that fits. If not, I'll just readjust. Okay, I didn't quite take enough off. Well, actually I did. I've just got to sand the furry bit off. It's still a tiny little bit too tight, so I've got to take a little bit more off. So I've got time to do that. So I'm just going to readjust a tiny little bit. That should give me bit more of a cut. Okay, so I'll do that again. So ears on, everybody. turn that off, please. As you can see, I'll just shift this so that we can do the rest of it. So that fits quite nicely now. And the thing about it is, it's creating enough air pressure so that when you push the drawer in, it actually pushes the next one out. Okay, so that one's popped out as well. But you can see that they fit very, very snugly. And they come in and out quite easily, and they'll give you, you know, a nice easy drawer. You might need a little bit of sanding, but basically that's how they're going to fit. Okay, so our next task is to build the front parts of it. Now, what I've done with the fronts, I've dressed some material down to 8mm. And what I want to do is I want to try and match the front of the box with the outside of the box, so that the same material, the same cedar, is being used on the top. Right. So all I'm going to do there is I'm going to cut two pieces of material that are a little bit too wide, wider than the box, so that I've got room to dress things down, and then I'll put one on top of the other so that we've got the grain of the front of the board matching all the way along the whole of the box. Right. I could have got a piece of material that went from here to here and then just docked it in the right sizes, but I didn't have one. So I have to use something that's pretty much straight grained. Now I've got two different types. So this one here, which is a little bit narrower, and this one here a little bit wider, but it's a bit pinker, and the grain is actually much straighter. So I'm probably going to use this one here because of its the straightness of the grain. Now that grain, remember, I always talk about quarter sawn timbers. That sort of straight grain is a clear indication of well quartered timber, a well cut timber that's cut on the quarter. You can see here, when you look across it, you can actually see the grain is actually square across the end of the piece of wood. So that's something that's very, very important, particularly when you're doing the front of these boxes. You don't want them shifting and moving. You can see the difference in the colours. You can see that one's a little bit more orange than the other. And I think I'll be using the wider one. If I was using material for the rose mahogany, you can see, look at the colours in this. You can, if you're one of those people who like lots of different colour, you can see there's a variation, and this is fairly significant. You've got different colours in your grains, and lots of spalting and all sorts of things. It's quarter sawn, but like I say, it's very, very different. Now, you don't have to always have straight colour the way I'm doing the box. What you can do is you can start doing a little bit of, I suppose people would call it fancy work, with your timbers. So instead of just having a straight out timber like that, I have to shift things. So give me 2 secs, and I'll shift a few things so that I've got stuff out of the way. No sawdust, Chris. No sawdust, mate. There you go. Look at that, nice and clean. The thing about that connection system is that you can connect it up to any one of your fences. So if you're making fences to fit all your benches, fit all your router bits, you can make a fence to fit them all in that form. Get this out of the way. Okay, so we'll go back to where we were. I just want to talk about this a little bit. When I'm making boxes for people, commission boxes, you get all sorts of requests. You can see, just looking at this, you can see that there is quite a significant difference in the two pieces of timber. Really hard to get wide timber like this cheaply. So one of the things that you can do is start adding little bits and pieces in it. So what I could do is I could cut, this is white tulip oak, I could cut a strip of that and put it in the box. So you end up with a change in the colour. So you can do things like that. There's any number of different things that you can do to enhance the front of the box if you don't like just plain simple format. If you look at the box on the far side here, you just pan around onto this box here, Pammy, you can see that that's just plain timber on there. There's no embellishment whatsoever apart from the brass knobs. Even they don't fit the style of the box. So you need to sort of have a look at changing those sorts of things if you wish. Apart from doing something like that and putting a door on it. But yeah, choose your timber wisely, choose your timber that you like doing, and have a little practice at any of the embellishing that you might want to add on there. There's nothing worse than cutting yourself some lovely timber like this. There's nothing worse than cutting it and then realising when you've done your embellishing it doesn't work, or you've got it wrong in the process of doing it, or something like that. So we have a little, you have to have a little bit of excess so that you can do some practice work. If you're carving them, that's a different thing altogether. You need to do various functions of that. I haven't done any carving on the front of one of these boxes. That's a future project, but we'll have a little play with that as well. So a little bit of relief carving sometimes looks quite nice. So this is going to sit on there, and you can see it's going to be very similar to the colour of the box. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to dock two pieces. I'm not going to join them together, but I'm going to measure and cut my parts. So first task, square up one end, and then I'll need to get my ruler, wherever I put it. It's over there. The rain hasn't finished, guys. We're still getting wet. Steel and wood is so noisy. What's so noisy? Dust extractor. All right. All right. So give me a little bit on the excess on each end. My cabinet is 200 millimetres wide. So if I just go to 210, that gives me 5 millimetres either side to play with. If I want to make it longer or wider, or if I want to do some other work with it and I chip an end, I've got something to take off. So 210, so two pieces of this at 210. Once I've cut these, I'm going to stop there, and that will be the end of the show because we've run out of time. But so over to the saw. And my first task is to square up the end. Shift this off here. Take this away. Square up the end. I need two pieces at 210. Light on. only problem with this type of bench is that you get stuff stuck behind it, and if you're not careful, you end up with a crooked cut. They're both exactly the same. Okay, so back to the bench. So as you can see, this is what our drawers are going to look like. So the drawers are going to fit on there nice in the front of the drawers. And you can see I've got a little bit of an overlap here, not very much, about 10 mil, that's all I need. So I'll cut those, and out of this second piece I will cut the drawers, the fronts for the top drawers. Okay, so that's next week. We'll get to that stage, and then we'll go through the process of fitting them and take it from there. So that'll be it for today. So as you can see, we are well on the way to getting it. You can see the fronts of those, they look quite nice. Actually, it looks like a nice little feature, doesn't it? So hopefully we can get, we'll get the drawer fronts done next week. I might even cut a few beforehand and take it from there. So a little bit to do, and then we're going to start looking at sanding and finishing after we've got the fronts of the drawers. I'm going to do a little bit of embellishing on a couple of different ones, and have a little play with it, just to show you that it is a fairly easy task, and you can make the drawers look a little bit better than just the plain ones that are there, even though that does look quite nice. So have a good week, everybody. Take care, and stay dry. If it's raining at your place, it's raining at our place, and I hope you all have a good week, and we will see you next week. Don't forget, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. It lifts our profile a little bit, and also you'll get a reminder, so give that a shot. And if you're looking for the timbers, by all means, onto our website and take it from there. Okay, so catch you all next week.